Welcome to Mystara for a long overdue remaster. Module CM6, where Chaos Reigns. TSR UK wrote this, so you know it's going to be out there. It's famous for being the first Beckman module explicitly set on another plane and featuring villains so good they would later be retroactively attributed to Star Trek, with TSR stealing them several years later before the Star Trek Next Generation would debut. Still, since this is a time travel adventure, it makes total sense that the writers would see the introduction of the board, get inspired, go back 4 years, and create the Ord. I'm Mr. Welch, and get ready for a lot of wibbly-wobbly stuff. Where Chaos Reigns was written by Graham Morris in 1985, making this one of the few TSR UK modules, along with Drums on Fire Mountain, Night's Dark Terror, and Blade of Vengeance, set in Mystara, or at least partially. I'm not counting Up the Garden Path, because that one was a promotional module, not meant to be actually played. And finding a physical copy will require you to take out a second mortgage. Jim Bambra and Phil Gallagher get credit for assisting with the storyline, and Brian Williams did the cover art, with Jez Goodwin handling the smashing interior art. So this is done by the people that gave us Warhammer Fantasy First Edition. It's officially only 24 pages long, but that doesn't include the 8-page pullout with all the creature and equipment stats. If you want a copy, a PDF costs you $5, there's no print on demand, but a physical copy starts out around $25 on eBay, so not a lot of people are buying this one secondhand. Despite spending very little time on Mystara, this module is important in canon regarding Immortals, as it showcases that Mystara isn't the only planet that worship Immortals over gods. It also hammers home how serious the Immortals are about not using their awesome powers to wipe out races they don't like, even if it's a dire threat to them. The race in point are the Oards, a time-traveling group of science nerds who are trying to rewrite the past to ensure that they are the dominant species in the future. In the Oards' perfect future, there is no religion, so there is no worship of the Immortals. You can see the problem. A jealous god would snap his fingers, and those who disobey him would immediately turn into an overpressurized sausage, as a warning to everyone else that the whole "worship me" part of their beliefs wasn't a suggestion. Not the Immortals. They're forbidden from using their powers to kill the mortals, so instead they subcontract their genocides. Enter the player characters. The world that the Oards are looking to conquer is called Alos, and it could teach Tolkien a lesson on how to make a stock fantasy world. It's got elves, dwarves, wizards, lots of undead and similar. It's also got time-traveling Debbie Downers who are trying to change the timeline so magic use dies out, along with those that use it. Instead, all that will be left is a world of science and technology, perfect for the Oards, who will wait until they arrive as the future culture, and the world is already prepared for them. Don't think about it too hard. Figure that there's a chance that the Ord will become dominant, and the more they change of the history, the greater that chance is. You have to keep them from changing the past too much to keep the odds of an Ord victory low. And that brings us to the villains of this adventure, the Oards. Among Mystara players, these guys are almost the stuff of legend. To people outside the setting, they appear as Borg ripoffs. The problem with that line of thought is they predate Star Trek Next Generation by years, so the similarity is superficial. They do have a similar appearance, having large amounts of implants, but vastly different methods and motivations. The Oards were humans, presumably from the future, who devoted themselves to the ways of technology and have devised a method of time travel. Granted, this is one way, so when they go back to change the past, there's no way back. There's no time period where they officially come from. This is deliberate. The Oards don't come from somewhere else, they come from somewhen else. They're mute, communicating telepathically through implants, or if they have to speak, they use one of their many devices to duplicate the language, dialect, and the accent they're impersonating. They might not use magic, but they are firm believers in Clark's laws, so many of their technological wonders are given magical item equivalents. The Oards are the most memorable thing about this adventure, and sadly they never appear again. They have a whole section on their technological items, and the players can't use the items to hammer home the difference between their tech and magic. Players can't even figure out how to turn them on. Magic provides no assistance in operating the items or even figuring out how it works. And augury will reveal that neither do the Immortals. The only way to get one to work is with a wish spell, which grants you 1d4 wishes before it stops working, and then you have to use another wish spell. The most significant threat that the Ord present is the paranoia they cause, as they can change their appearance with image bracelets and work to turn their victims against each other as they enact their machinations. Think of them as part Borg, part Terminator, and part Thing. The gross, icky thing, not the rocky or handy thing. The adventure is broken into 5 parts, each representing a different part of Alos' history. As this is a companion series module, everybody has their own domain when this starts. Don't worry about that too much, as they're not going to be spending any time there. Some weird but harmless stuff is happening, like birds migrating the wrong way, plants blooming out of season, rainbows with the colors out of order, etc. The party investigates and finds a small and utterly innocent cabin that wasn't there before. When they get close, they get a mental exposition dump to the frontal lobes explaining the entire plot, and then the Immortals compel them to enter the cabin, no save, and the adventure starts. The critical part to remember about Where Chaos Reigns is that the 5 chapters are not meant to be played one after another. Like Test of the Warlords, you can play the first adventure, bugger off to go do something else, have a couple of other adventurers, and then the Immortals yank you back to Ilos for the next section. If you need a small adventurous filler, run a chapter of this module, then kick the players back out to their homes. The chapters are much shorter than running one of these modules in the Warlord series, and it does keep a sense of continuation. You don't have to explain the plot again to the players when running a one-shot from CM6. They know they're going back to Alos because those Ord boys are up to no good again. Treat it like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. You're keeping the same characters, but the timeline keeps advancing. In the beginning is obviously the first chapter, as the party finds itself in the Stone Age where the simple and innocent Garls fight against the encroaching elven colonists who seek to drive them to extinction. The party is tasked with helping the elves make sure that the proto-cavemen take a dirt nap so they can claim all the virgin territories for themselves. Garls are another creature that sadly didn't make any other appearances after this, except maybe a single line in the Hollow World, if I remember correctly. The Ord have taught the Garls how to domesticate animals like mammoths and saber-toothed tigers, so go watch the video on the megafauna of Mystara to catch up again. I'll see you in 10 minutes. The party arrives as the Garls are trying to drive off the elven conquistadors, so the elves aren't quite up to the Spanish levels of technology, with no metal weapons, a limited number of spells, plus their paella sucks. The party has to fend off the Garls and help the elves to get to the sacred Treant Grove to finally acquire their Tree of Life, and then they will dominate the area. Then the Garls will suffer the same fate as the Dortalizi tieflings and fade away into vaguely remembered obscurity. Along the way, the party will encounter a large group of humans who will join the refugee column, and then the characters get to watch as they form the first alliance of elves and men. The Oards behind this will obviously be the leader of the Garls, and the adventure ends when the party tracks them back to their cave and kills all of them. Not just the men, but the women and children too. I'm not kidding, the book states that once all the Garls are dead, the party returns to Mystara. When the party returns to Alos, this time they find themselves on a ship headed to an oracle who will provide them with the info dump, naturally. They are now trying to save the dwarves from a Hephaeston who doesn't want them to learn how to work iron. Another classic Mystara monster that sadly only gets a significant appearance in this module. That's 3 legendary monsters introduced in this adventure for those keeping track at home. The ship then has to get to the location of the dwarves. Still, they first have to do a brief recreation of the Odyssey with sirens and cyclops and even that skeleton fight scene from Jason and the Argonauts, only taken to 11 with hundreds of skeletons. Hope you brought a cleric. And don't get too attached to the crew because like the Odyssey, they are dead men rowing. Remember this part if you're going to be playing the Master Series, because the first module, Into the Maelstrom, recreates the Odyssey again. Homer is the official Greek poet of Mystara. This part of the module is based on every Ray Harryhausen movie ever made, so go watch those real quick to understand the feel of this section. I'll see you in about 10 hours. Back? Yeah, they don't make them like Harryhausen anymore. I still can't get over Tom Baker playing the villain in The Golden Voyage of Sinbad, but back to Dungeons & Dragons. You've got to deal with bronze golems and living rock statues, and the Ord wearing the absolute worst disguise, being some random lone human in a robe. He's convinced the typically neutral Hephaeston that the dwarves are imposters coming to steal his forge. So if you want to go for a diplomatic answer rather than just kill the bad guy, win the adventure, you can certainly do that. Or just kill the Ord so he changes to his actual appearance to shock the giant in that classic trope. This is the shortest section in the module. You don't even meet the dwarves until after you've defeated the giant. Bronze and Iron is the third and longest section of the adventure, where you must unite different tribes and create the second alliance of elves and men, only with dwarves and halflings. Sadly, there's no gnomes here because you could really use some air support in this one. The Oards have convinced one human tribe that the demi-human races and human tribes led by druids have to go. So the Colmead tribe has unified and slaughtered their magic-using neighbors, with wizards and clerics being relatively rare at this point. This section has strong elements of Kurosawa's work, so go watch his movies real quick to understand the theme behind this chapter. I'll see you in 3 days. Now you know the reason why I don't watch anime. Everybody else was binging Speed Racer. I caught Yojimbo on Saturday afternoon Kung Fu Theater. Akira spoiled me. Can you imagine Kurosawa and Harryhausen teaming up to make a Godzilla movie? My god, I don't think the world would have been able to handle that level of amazing. Anyways, back to the module. The party has to ally all the various groups to team up against the approaching superior army, and of course nobody likes each other that much. Humans hold grudges against rival tribes. The dwarves are still mad about the elves giving them blankets accidentally infested with beard pox, and the halflings are just tired of all the short jokes. You know the story. The players have to explain the magic of friendship, the importance of working together, and the realization that they weren't joking when they said they will personally kill any man that breaks and runs. Yes, this is the mass combat part of the adventure. The big battle does have a robot Drolem created by an Ord, so there's your 4th epic monster of the module. But you have heard this tale told many times, and you know how it ends. The 4th segment is the Isle of the Sorcerer, and you finally get to see wizards for a change. The location the party arrives at is the magical library, known as the Bibliotheca, where the most powerful wizards arrive to study the magic of their world. Only they've been kidnapped and replaced by Oards. who seek to replace all the wizards with themselves and exterminate magic that way. There must not be a lot of wizards, or the Oards can keep cloning themselves in vast quantities to actually pull this one off. This adventure is straightforward. Run a gauntlet of monsters and traps, free the wizards, kill the Oards. You can convince the elven guards about the imposters, just sneak by them, or chalk them up to friendly fire. Either way, it's a straight-up dungeon crawl, but with some rather nasty obstacles in the way. Lastly, we come to the last part of the adventure, the entropy bubble. It has the Immortals discovering when the Oards are coming from and sending you to deal with them. Don't worry about your charisma stat, because this is a kill-em-all. The Immortals did not pick you for this mission because of your amazing diplomatic skills. There isn't much to this section. If you want to know what inspired this part, go play Doom for a week. That's your motivation. You enter the Ord base, you rip and tear until nothing is left alive. The end. There's no prisoners to rescue, moral dilemmas to solve, or minds to be changed. This is a slaughter from start to finish. When you're done, you get sent back to Mystara with the thanks of the Immortals and all injuries healed. Except for energy drain. Immortal insurance apparently doesn't cover level drains. Also, your services are paid for with exposure rather than gold and magic. So maybe the Ord had a point. That's where chaos reigns. The adventures are middle tier, but the monster selection is top notch. The Ord should have been expanded upon in future works. They were just too good of a villain to make a single-use baddie. The adventure borrows heavily from various inspirations, but at least they stole from the best. The fact that it can be used as filler adventures between other modules does raise its usefulness. The next remaster is The Lost City, one of the classic adventures from Tom Moldvay, with crazy people, great old ones, and sand. Lots of sand. Until then, beware of elves bearing gifts.